The Sands Hotel casino floor sparkled under crystal chandeliers in 1961 Las Vegas. Sammy Davis Jr. stood frozen at the blackjack table, his hand trembling as cigar smoke curled around him. Across the green felt, a man in an expensive suit leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow cut through the slot machine bells and laughter. "You think you belong here, boy? In my casino?" The word hung in the air like poison. Other players shifted uncomfortably. The dealer's hands stopped mid-shuffle. Everyone knew who this man was, Tony the Hammer Marcello, a mob boss who controlled half the strip. And everyone knew what happened to people who crossed him. But what happened next shocked the entire Vegas underworld. Because Dean Martin was watching. And Dean Martin never forgot his friends. Before we dive into this incredible true story of loyalty and courage, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Stories like this deserve to be remembered. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Las Vegas in the early 1960s was a different world. The neon lights and glamorous shows hid a darker reality. Organized crime families ran the city. The Sands Hotel stood as the crown jewel of the Strip, and performing there meant you'd made it to the top. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop, the Rat Pack, owned those stages every night. Sammy Davis Jr. was more than just an entertainer. He was a phenomenon. Born in Harlem in 1925, he'd been performing since age 3, touring with his father in vaudeville shows. By 1961, he could sing, dance, play multiple instruments, and do impressions that left audiences breathless. But being a black entertainer in 1960s America, even a famous one, came with constant reminders that talent didn't always equal respect. Dean Martin was different from the other Rat Pack members. While Frank Sinatra was the charismatic leader and Sammy was the dynamo performer, Dean was the steady, loyal friend. Born Dino Crocetti in Steubenville, Ohio, to Italian immigrant parents, he understood what it meant to be looked down on. His laid-back persona on stage, the perpetually tipsy crooner with a rocks glass, hid a sharp mind and unwavering principles about loyalty and respect. The mob's grip on Vegas was no secret. Families from Chicago, New York, and Kansas City had interests in various casinos. They controlled who performed, who got hired, and who got paid. Most entertainers learned to smile, perform, and never make waves. The money was too good, and the consequences of defiance were too severe. Tony Marcello represented the Chicago outfit's interests at the Sands. He was a made man with a reputation for violence that kept people in line. Standing 6 feet tall with slicked-back hair and suits that cost more than most people's monthly salary, he moved through the casino like he owned it, because in many ways he did. His nickname, the Hammer, came from his preferred method of sending messages to people who forgot their place. That evening started like any other. The Rat Pack had finished their midnight show to a packed house. Sinatra had already left for a private party. Joey and Peter were at the bar. Dean and Sammy decided to unwind at the blackjack tables, something they'd done dozens of times before. The casino was their playground, a place where they were supposed to be treated like royalty. Sammy sat down at the high-roller blackjack table around 2 a.m., his stage makeup still perfect, wearing a sharp suit that cost more than most people earned in a month. He'd just signed a check for $10,000 in chips, serious money in 1961. Dean was a few tables over, nursing his usual drink and charming the dealer with his easy smile. That's when Tony Marcello appeared. He walked up to Sammy's table with 2 of his associates, their presence immediately changing the atmosphere. The other players suddenly found reasons to cash out. The dealer's smile vanished. Sammy looked up and nodded politely, the way he'd learned to navigate these situations. Stay professional, stay friendly, don't cause trouble. "Evening, Mr. Marcello," Sammy said, his voice carrying that trademark warmth that had won him millions of fans. Tony didn't sit. He stood behind the empty chair next to Sammy, one hand on its back, the other holding a lit cigar. His eyes were cold, calculating. "Sammy Davis Jr.," he said, making the name sound like an accusation. "You've been doing real good for yourself. Fancy suits, fancy cars, fancy friends. Just trying to entertain, sir. That's what I do. That's what you do." Tony took a long pull from his cigar, the red ember glowing. "You know what I do, Sammy? I make sure things run smooth around here. Make sure people know their place. Make sure everyone's comfortable." The words carried weight beyond their surface meaning. Other casino patrons were starting to notice the confrontation. Whispers spread through the floor. Someone had called for security, but security didn't come. Not when Tony Marcello was involved. Sammy tried to change the subject, gesturing to the table. "Would you like to join the game, Mr. Marcello? There's plenty of room." "I don't think so." Tony's voice dropped lower. "See, I'm not comfortable with certain people playing at my tables. Brings down the atmosphere. Makes my other guests uneasy." The dealer froze. The pit boss, watching from across the floor, suddenly became very interested in his clipboard. Everyone understood what was happening, but no one knew what to do about it. This was Tony Marcello. "You didn't challenge Tony Marcello." "I've got money to play," Sammy said quietly, his hands resting on the table's edge. Years of experience with discrimination had taught him to stay calm, to not give anyone an excuse. Same as anyone else here. "Money ain't the issue, boy." There it was again, that word, delivered with casual cruelty that made several witnesses wince. "The issue is knowing where you belong. You belong on that stage, singing and dancing for us. You don't belong sitting here like you're one of us." Sammy's jaw tightened. He'd faced this kind of hatred his entire life. In the army during World War II, in hotels that wouldn't let him stay even after he performed there, in restaurants that served him at the back door. But this was supposed to be different. The Sands was supposed to be his home. The Rat Pack was supposed to be beyond this. "Mr. Marcello, I'm just here to play some cards and relax after a show. I don't want any trouble." "Then walk away. Right now. Take your chips and go upstairs to your room. That's where you're comfortable, right? Up there, alone, not mixing with decent people down here." The casino had gone quiet. 50 people were watching now, some horrified, others nodding in agreement, all of them waiting to see what would happen. Tony's two associates had positioned themselves on either side of Sammy, not touching him but close enough to make the threat clear. Sammy Davis Jr., one of the most talented performers in the world, sat at that blackjack table feeling the same humiliation he'd felt countless times before. His hands shook slightly as he reached for his chips. He was about to stand up, about to walk away with his dignity shattered once again, when a voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Tony, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Dean Martin had crossed the casino floor. His usual easygoing expression was gone, replaced by something nobody at the Sands had seen before, cold, focused anger. He stood next to Sammy's chair, one hand on his friend's shoulder, his eyes locked on Tony Marcello. The mob boss's confident smile flickered. "Dean, this doesn't concern you. Go back to your table. When someone disrespects my friend, it concerns me." Dean's voice was steady, controlled, but everyone heard the steel underneath. "Sammy's not going anywhere. He's got every right to be here." Tony's face hardened. "You don't want to do this, Martin. You know who I am. You know what I can do." "Yeah, I know exactly who you are." Dean stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "You're a bully, and I don't like bullies." The entire casino was watching now. Dealers had stopped dealing. Slot machines kept ringing, but nobody was playing them. This was the kind of moment that would be talked about for decades. Dean Martin, beloved entertainer, standing up to one of the most dangerous men in Las Vegas. Tony Marcello wasn't used to being challenged. In his world, when he spoke, people listened. When he gave orders, people followed them. The idea that a singer, even one as popular as Dean Martin, would stand up to him was almost incomprehensible. "Dean, think about what you're doing," Tony said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Think about your career, your friends, your future in this town. All of that can disappear real quick if you don't walk away right now." Dean didn't move. "Let me tell you something about the future, Tony. My future involves standing by my friends. Sammy's staying. He's playing cards. And if you've got a problem with that, then you've got a problem with me, Frank, Joey, Peter, all of us." The mention of Frank Sinatra's name made several people gasp. Everyone knew Sinatra's connections, his friendships with powerful people, his own complicated relationship with organized crime families. But more importantly, everyone knew that the Rat Pack was a package deal. If you went after one of them, you went after all of them. Tony's eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake." "No." Dean's voice grew louder, making sure everyone in the casino could hear. "The mistake is thinking you can treat people like garbage just because you've got muscle. Sammy Davis Jr. is the most talented performer on this entire strip. He brings more money into this casino than half the games on this floor. And more importantly, he's my friend. So here's what's going to happen." Dean pulled out a chair and sat down next to Sammy, placing his own chips on the table. "We're going to play blackjack. You're welcome to join us, Tony. Or you can walk away and let us enjoy our night. Your choice." The dealer looked at Tony, then at Dean, uncertain who to obey. The pit boss had disappeared completely, not wanting any part of this confrontation. Tony's two associates shifted uncomfortably, waiting for their boss's signal. For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then something unexpected happened. From across the casino floor, voices started calling out. "Deal them in," someone shouted. "Let them play," another voice added. Within seconds, a dozen patrons were voicing their support, some because they genuinely believed in fairness, others because they sensed which way the wind was blowing. Tony Marcello realized he'd miscalculated. This wasn't a back alley or a private room where he could enforce his will through violence. This was a public casino floor with witnesses, and Dean Martin had just turned the confrontation into a referendum on basic human decency. If Tony pushed this further, it would become a public relations disaster for the Sands, and the families who controlled it didn't like publicity. "This isn't over," Tony said quietly, but even he knew it was a hollow threat. He'd lost this round, and everyone knew it. Dean smiled that familiar, easy smile, but his eyes remained hard. "Yeah, it is. Dealer, you going to deal these cards or what?" The dealer, relieved to have a clear instruction, began shuffling. Tony Marcello stood there for another moment, his authority undermined, his power challenged. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, his associates following like shadows. The casino erupted in conversation. Sammy Davis Jr. sat stunned, hardly believing what had just happened. Dean patted his shoulder. "You okay, Pally?" "Dean, you didn't have to do that. You could've." "Could've what? Let my friend get pushed around?" "Not a chance." Dean signaled the waitress. "2 scotches. We're celebrating." The cards were dealt, but neither Dean nor Sammy was really focused on the game. Around them, the casino slowly returned to normal, though everyone kept glancing at their table, still processing what they'd witnessed. Sammy leaned close to Dean. "You know what you just did? You made an enemy of one of the most dangerous men in Vegas." Dean shrugged, studying his cards. "Then he shouldn't have made an enemy of one of my friends." "Hit me, dealer." Over the next few weeks, the story of what happened that night spread through Las Vegas and beyond. Tony Marcello never apologized, but he also never bothered Sammy again. The confrontation had cost Tony something more valuable than money: respect. He'd been publicly challenged and had backed down. In the mob world, that kind of weakness could be fatal to your reputation. Frank Sinatra heard about the incident and personally thanked Dean. "That took guts, Pally. Real guts." Dean just smiled. "Sammy would have done the same for me." And that was the truth of it. The Rat Pack wasn't just a stage act or a marketing gimmick. It was a real friendship built on mutual respect and loyalty. When Dean Martin stood up to that mob boss, he wasn't making a political statement or trying to be a hero. He was simply doing what friends do, standing up for each other when it matters most. Years later, Sammy Davis Jr. would tell this story with tears in his eyes. "Dean Martin saved my dignity that night," he said in a 1989 interview, just months before Dean's health began failing. "But more than that, he showed me what true friendship looks like. It's not about the laughs and the good times. It's about standing beside someone when standing beside them costs you something." The incident at the Sands became part of Las Vegas legend, one of those stories that gets told and retold, sometimes exaggerated, sometimes simplified, but always carrying the same essential truth. There are moments in life when you have to choose between what's easy and what's right. Dean Martin chose right. The lesson from that smoky casino floor in 1961 echoes through the decades. In a world where power and money often determine who gets respected and who gets pushed aside, sometimes it takes just one person willing to say no to change everything. Dean Martin wasn't a civil rights activist. He didn't march or give speeches. But when his friend needed him, he stood up, literally, and refused to let hatred and prejudice win that night. What would you have done in Dean Martin's position? Would you have risked everything to defend your friend? Hit that like button if this story moved you, and subscribe so you never miss stories about real courage and loyalty. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had a friend stand up for you when it really mattered? Your story might inspire someone else. The Sands Hotel where this confrontation took place was demolished in 1996, but the story of that night lives on. Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin remained close friends until Sammy's death in 1990. Dean Martin passed away in 1995, but both men left behind legacies that extended far beyond their entertainment careers. They showed us that true class has nothing to do with money or fame. It's about how you treat people, especially when no one's forcing you to treat them well.